It's been 8 years since the last installment in the Bayonetta franchise, and that streak has finally been broken with the release of Bayonetta 3. I thought I would take a look back at the first game before jumping into this one, since I haven't played it in just as long. That and they just re-released it as a standalone Switch cartridge, which I had to have. Of course, this was already available on Switch as a download, but now I can look at all three of them on the shelf next to each other. Bayonetta was originally released on the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 in October 2009 for Japan, and January 2010 everywhere else in the world. I bought a PS3 copy of this game not too long after it came out, but I didn't end up getting that far. The PS3 version of Bayonetta is unfortunately riddled with loading screens and suffers from multiple issues in the visual department. It's technically still playable, but it's definitely the worst version of Bayonetta, and at the time, it turned me away from the series. I wouldn't play the game proper until 2014 when it was re-released on Wii U alongside the launch of Bayonetta 2. I remember tossing the controller back and forth between my brother and I, and thoroughly enjoying the game growing up. I also remember dying a lot, and 8 years later, not much has changed. Regardless, stepping back into the world of Bayonetta made me feel a wave of nostalgia, and coming from someone who's played all their childhood games to death, that's saying a lot. I don't get nostalgia anymore, but this game managed to pull me away from the titles I regularly cycle through and sucked me into its world of angels, demons, and upside-down faced dragon beasts. It is unapologetically over the top in almost every aspect, and I love every moment of it. So with that, let's get right into Bayonetta for the Nintendo Switch. Bayonetta's story takes place in the city of Vigrid, where two opposing factions existed before the modern day, those being the Umbran Witches and the Lumen Sages. They each held a piece of the magical objects known as the Eyes of the World, which they used to maintain the balance. However, at some point, a conflict erupted between the two groups, leading to a war and the eventual annihilation of both clans. Fast forward 500 years, and one of the last Umbran Witches, Bayonetta, is discovered in a coffin at the bottom of a lake. She wakes up from her centuries-long sleep, having no memories of her past, and seeks information on her mysterious origins, all the while fighting off Heaven's angels sent to kill her. She works alongside Enzo, the underworld informant, and Rodon, the ex-angel turned arms dealer. These three all get introduced in the first cutscene, which I believe is one of the best video game intro sequences ever. Enzo is one of my favorites, and his performance by voice actor Chick Venera is fantastic. The Joe Pesci inspiration for his voice fits this guy perfectly. Sadly, he doesn't stick around much after the start of the game, but don't worry, I saw his face plenty of times after that.
What a day! What a day! What a day!
Rodon, on the other hand, is just badass in human form. He's a fallen angel who now runs a bar where he sells various weapons and items to you throughout the game. He has trophies too, and they're gold. I think I got 2? In its purest form, Bayonetta is a hack-and-slash adventure game. There's a bit of exploration with a few hidden areas and collectibles to be found, but for the most part, it's pretty linear. Levels are divided up into sections called verses, which are graded individually based on performance. You'll get awarded medals based on a number of factors, being speed of completion, damage taken, and items used. Bayonetta's main weapons are her 4 pistols known as Scarborough Fair, that she can fire with her hands and feet. From the start of the game, she has a few basic combos that have enders called Wicked Weaves. Bayonetta uses her hair to channel the power of the demons of Inferno and unleash large-scale attacks that can clear entire hordes of enemies. Performing combos will also slowly build up the magic meter, which when full, can be used for Bayonetta's torture finishers. For these attacks, she pulls out a different torture device depending on the enemy targeted. From there, it's a button-mashing, stick-spinning minigame to maximize both damage and the multiplier for halos. Trying to maximize your hit count every time will make your hands damn tired, and you really gotta mash to get those hits in. But the payoff feels amazing. Bayonetta has all kinds of crazy over-the-top techniques, and I'm always looking forward to what she's gonna pull out next. I think my favorite by far is the chainsaw attack. See, when Bayonetta normally finishes a torture attack, she puts the weapon away and you go on as normal, but the chainsaw stays as a temporary weapon, much like the ones large enemies will drop, so you could just keep using it. And you just sit there and try to tell me what isn't awesome about playing as a witch, killing angels with a chainsaw. I fucking love this game. The biggest game changer in Bayonetta's arsenal, however, is her Witch Time. By dodging an attack at the last second, Bayonetta can enter Witch Time, temporarily slowing everything around her down while still being able to move at a regular speed. It's so satisfying to pull off every time because the reward is huge. The enemies move really fast in this game and you're gonna get sucker punched a lot, but this buff forces you to slow down and dodge only when you need to reap its full benefits. It can be used against the bosses as well after certain attacks, but I'm getting ahead of myself here. At the end of each stage, stage, after finishing the final verse or beating a boss, you're given a grade tallying up the medals you've received throughout the level. You'll get a trophy ranging from a stone Enzo to a pure platinum Bayonetta, which I did not get one of. Reason being, that award requires you to not get hit once during an entire stage. On top of that, you need to finish the level within a certain time frame, have a high enough score, and use no items that could heal or increase your damage output. You could say that the game wants you to be perfect, but I'd argue that it wants you dead even more. How dead, you ask? Every time you meet a new angel, it usually starts as a cutscene with a book showing the angel's name. As soon as that book flies off screen, you're attacked almost immediately. On one hand, it's actually a really cool way to see how seamlessly this game transitions from cutscene to gameplay. And after a few levels, you should know the drill, but goddammit, I got hit every time. I guess that's more a me problem, but you know what isn't? Quick time events. There's a few during the boss fights that happen where it feels a bit more natural, but there are some that are just sporadically placed throughout the adventure. Whether there's little time to react or a new button combination thrown at you, there's no way to avoid getting killed by these your first time through. Take this one for example in the mini boss fight against Fortitudo. Tell me that didn't look like a cutscene. That is grade A bullshit. Look, they even saved the game for you because they knew everyone was gonna die here. There's no way. Yeah, good luck to those going for those perfect trophies, because dying even one time in a stage completely tanks your score. You pretty much go from gold to bronze in an instant. Also, this weird glitch happened where the game decided to cut from the middle of a boss fight to what I can only describe as an inside a typhoon POV experience, complete with me dying at the end of it. Now that's the only glitch I encountered during the game, but I'm just going to chalk it up as another case of Bayonetta wants you dead. So yeah, the game's pretty hard. Even if you're not going for a perfect run, you'll get beat up quite a bit. So to help you get through those unforgiving stages, you can get many different buffs and items from the game's shop, the Gates of Hell. This area is accessible from the level select menu and in the middle of certain stages. There's a lot of shit to buy in here and most of it is pretty expensive. There's no way to get everything in one playthrough and I missed out on a lot of game-changing items my first time around. But that's mostly my own fault for prioritizing Bayonetta's moves over everything else. It was definitely worth it though. Her attacks are just too fun and ridiculous to pass up. As for the weapons available in the shop, they can be purchased once you bring Rodon 2 halves of an angelic hymn. Like her 4 pistols, these weapons can be attached to both her hands and feet. Customizing her weapons opens up new combo routes and even changes her Wicked Weave combo enders. I think it's safe to say the possibilities are endless and there are a lot of ways to kill an angel. Alright, I'm gonna talk about the bosses now because I love boss fights and Bayonetta has some really fucking good ones. Every boss fight in Bayonetta feels like a grand epic. You're up against the upper ring of angels who all tower over Bayonetta in size. You're mostly dodging large swings and adapting to their attempts to disrupt the environment, which makes for fights that are just as engaging as they are challenging. It takes every aspect of the gameplay and stacks them against you. But these lead up to the greatest moments in the game, being Bayonetta's climax finishers. Nothing brings me more joy than seeing Bayonetta literally drag these massive, revered heavenly beings down to earth and kill them in the most extravagant way possible. I get chills at the end of every boss fight. It's just so awesome. Easily the biggest highlights in the game for me. Okay, spoiler alert for content after the end of the game. Skip to here. After spending an accumulative 10 million halos at the shop, you can fight Rodon as a secret boss. While I didn't make it to the boss myself, no fucking way, I had to bring it up just because of how ridiculous it is. It's pretty much like the final fight against Baldur, but cranked up to 100. This person playing makes it look a lot easier than it actually is. Not to mention doing it without taking a hit or touching the ground. I didn't even think that was possible. As for bonus content, like the Wii U version, the Switch version carries over the Nintendo-themed costumes that Bayonetta can wear. They even stay on during the cutscenes, which is pretty funny to look at. I like this a lot. They even added little touches like changing the halos to whatever currency corresponds with Bayonetta's outfit. This just looks like the next Zelda game. As for the in-game collectibles, they're enough to keep you busy and coming back to Bayonetta time and time again. There's 101 Umbran Tears of Blood to collect in the game, half of them from completing specific tasks, and the other half in the form of catching crows before they fly away. Fucker. There's also portals to Alfheim, which are essentially arena battles with conditional challenges. There's quite a few goodies locked behind some rather difficult stages, but thankfully there are other methods methods to obtaining these rewards. If you have Halos in the millions, you can spend them on cheat codes in Chapter 2 at the phone booths, which I think is a nice balance. I mean, who wouldn't want to grind 51 fights back to back to play as this bag of bones that dies in 2 hits? You know, even without going out of your way to unlock every item and complete every challenge, Bayonetta is still an amazing experience. In fact, I wouldn't really recommend completing most of those challenges if you care about your sanity. Bayonetta's hard, but Bayonetta's fun, above everything else. It's home to some of the most exciting, well-choreographed cutscenes I've ever seen in an action game, and I can tell that Platinum Games had a lot of fun making it, and I'll be looking forward to even more over-the-top action in Bayonetta 3. Gotta get to that one soon, my backlog looks awful.